The emergency sirens blared throughout the United Space Command headquarters. Adam Carter rubbed his tired eyes as he hurried down the corridor. 3 days without proper sleep had left dark circles under his eyes, but the former military strategist knew rest would have to wait even longer. "They're gone," Admiral George Wells said when Adam entered the command center. The old man's face looked gray in the blue light of the massive screen showing the remnants of a distant battle. The entire Tiberian alliance, wiped out in less than a week. Adam stared at the screen. The Tiberian alliance had been the largest non-human coalition in the known galaxy. They had advanced technology, a massive fleet, and billions of citizens across hundreds of worlds. Now they were gone. "How is that possible?" he asked. "The Krell," said Lisa Morgan, walking up beside him with a data tablet. The exobiologist's normally neat appearance was disheveled, her hair hastily tied back. "They've been expanding for centuries, but we've been too focused on our own development to notice. The Tiberians were the last major force standing against them." Admiral Wells pointed to a blinking light on the screen. "We picked up a distress signal. One Tiberian scout ship managed to escape. It's headed toward our border." "They've never reached out to us before," Adam said. "They never needed to," Lisa replied. "But they do now." The Tiberian ship was barely holding together when it docked at Outpost 7. Adam and Lisa watched through the observation window as medical teams rushed into the airlock. They brought out only one survivor, a tall, blue-skinned alien with 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected the harsh medical lights. "I study Tiberian physiology," Lisa whispered, "but I've never seen one in person." The alien was rushed to the medical bay. By the time Adam and Lisa were allowed to enter, the doctors had done all they could, but it wasn't enough. The Tiberian's life was slipping away. "It wants to communicate," the lead doctor said, pointing to a universal translator beside the bed. Adam stepped forward. "I'm Adam Carter, diplomatic advisor for Earth's United Space Command." The Tiberian's voice came through the translator in a series of clicks and hums that transformed into rough English. "Human, you must prepare. The Krell, they cannot be stopped. We tried. Everyone tried." "What are the Krell?" Lisa asked. "Hive mind. Thousands of worlds consumed. They adapt to all weapons, learn from every defeat. The alien's breathing became labored. They come for you next. Data in my ship. Battle records. Weaknesses we found. Too late for us." Adam leaned closer. "Why do you think we can stop them if no one else could?" The dying alien's eyes focused on Adam with surprising clarity. "Humans are different. You think differently. Not logical like Tiberian. Not unified like Krell. You are unpredictable. Our scientists said, your species should have destroyed itself, but instead you thrived." The Tiberian raised one of its 4 hands, grasping Adam's wrist with surprising strength. "The Krell have never faced anything like humans. Perhaps that is what the galaxy needs." With those words, the last defender of the Tiberian alliance died. 24 hours later, Admiral Wells called an emergency council meeting. All the top military and scientific minds of Earth gathered around a large table. The data from the Tiberian ship played on screens around the room. Images of massive Krell ships tearing through defensive lines, entire planets being stripped of resources, and billions of lives lost. "The Krell Dominion has conquered over 6,000 star systems," Wells said. "They've destroyed every civilization they've encountered. And now they know we exist." Adam stood up. "Based on the Tiberian data, we have maybe 3 months before their scout ships reach our borders, 6 months before their main fleet arrives." Lisa activated a hologram showing a Krell, an insect-like creature with a hard exoskeleton and multiple limbs. "They operate as a collective consciousness. Each individual is connected to the hive mind. They don't experience fear or hesitation. They learn and adapt with each encounter." A heavy silence fell over the room. "So what do we do?" Someone finally asked. Admiral Wells looked at each person in turn. We do what humans have always done when faced with impossible odds. We fight. We innovate. We survive. He turned to Adam. Carter, I'm putting you in charge of strategic planning. Work with Dr. Morgan on understanding Krell weaknesses. Adam nodded, feeling the weight of humanity's future settling on his shoulders. Yes, sir. As the meeting ended, Adam gazed at the star map, showing the Krell's inexorable advance toward Earth. The enemy that no one could stop was coming, and humanity would be ready. Catherine Boyd had not left her laboratory in 3 days. Coffee cups and energy bar wrappers littered her workstation. Her eyes burned from staring at simulations, but she refused to stop. Not when the fate of humanity hung in the balance. It's ready for testing, she told Adam Carter as he entered the lab. She gestured to the device mounted on a small satellite frame. The new shield generator. If it works, it could give our ships a fighting chance against Krell weapons. Adam looked skeptical. The Tiberians had advanced shields too. Didn't help them much. The Tiberians built shields to absorb energy, Catherine said, pushing her glasses up. Mine redirected. Big difference. A voice came over the intercom before Adam could respond. All command staff to the bridge. Unidentified vessels approaching the outer defense perimeter. The command center buzzed with tense activity as Admiral Wells studied the main screen. 3 sleek, insect-like ships had appeared at the edge of the solar system. Krell scout ships, Lisa Morgan said, examining the readings. Earlier than we expected. They're scanning our outposts, Diana Miller reported from the communications station. The young specialist's fingers flew across her console. Complex signal patterns. I've never seen anything like it. Wells turned to Adam. Assessment. They're testing us, Adam replied. Standard military doctrine. Send scouts to probe defenses before committing main forces. Wells nodded grimly. Then let's give them something to think about. He activated the fleet-wide channel. All ships, defensive positions, and get me Captain Martinez. Peter Martinez led his team of Marines through the silent corridors of their stealth ship. Each person checked their gear one final time. They had trained for this mission for weeks, but theory was always different from reality. Remember, Peter said to his team, we need a live specimen. The scientists need to study their biology and tech, so watch your fire. His second-in-command, Sergeant Franklin, nodded. Yes, sir, though I still think this is crazy. Peter smiled grimly. Crazy is humanity's specialty, Sergeant. The battle began suddenly. The Krell ships launched without warning, their energy weapons carving into the first line of human defense satellites. But the human fleet was ready, moving into formation with practiced precision. They're targeting our communication arrays first, Adam observed from the command center. Just like they did with the Tiberian fleet. But we expected that, Admiral Wells said with grim satisfaction. Deploy the decoys. Dozens of small satellites activated, broadcasting false command signals. The Krell ships immediately changed course to attack them. Catherine's shields are holding, Lisa reported, watching the data stream in. The redirected energy is actually confusing their targeting systems. Meanwhile, Peter's stealth ship slipped silently behind the Krell formation. His team prepared for boarding as their ship matched velocity with the smallest Krell scout. Magnetic grapples engaged, the pilot announced. We're locked on. Peter nodded to his team. Helmets on. Let's make history. The Krell ship's interior was hot and humid, with organic-looking walls that pulsed with an inner light. Peter's team moved carefully through the narrow passages, following Lisa's directions to where they might find crew quarters. Movement ahead, Frank whispered, his weapon raised. A tall, insect-like creature rounded the corner. It had 6 limbs, a hard exoskeleton, and compound eyes that reflected the team's flashlights. It made no sound of surprise or fear. It simply reacted, raising a weapon of its own. Non-lethal, Peter shouted, firing the specialized stun weapon Catherine had designed. The Krell warrior dropped to the floor, its limbs twitching. It was the first Krell ever captured by humans. Back on Earth, Admiral Wells watched as the remaining Krell scouts retreated from the solar system. For the first time in centuries, the Krell had been denied their target. "They'll be back," Adam said, "with a much bigger fleet." "Yes," Wells agreed, "but now they know we're not easy prey. And thanks to Martinez, we have something even more valuable." On a secure medical deck, Lisa Morgan supervised as the captured Krell was secured in a specially designed chamber. Scientists gathered around, eager to study the enemy that had conquered half the galaxy. "What have we learned so far?" Adam asked when he arrived. Lisa looked up from her readings. "They communicate through a form of biological quantum entanglement. Each individual is connected to the hive mind across vast distances. That's how they coordinate so perfectly." She paused. "But there's something else. When we severed its connection to the hive, I detected something like fear." Nancy Wright adjusted her diplomatic uniform as the transport ship approached the remote space station. Once a thriving Tiberian outpost, it now served as a refugee center for aliens who had escaped Krell conquest. "Remember," Adam Carter said beside her, "these species have never worked together before. They're scared, desperate, and don't trust easily." Nancy nodded. "But they hate the Krell more than they distrust each other. We can use that." The station came into view, a massive ring structure with obvious battle damage along its outer hull. This would be humanity's first attempt to build a coalition against the Krell. Back on Earth, Eric Collins looked at the production reports with growing concern. The logistics specialist had been tasked with preparing Earth's industrial capacity for war, and the numbers weren't promising. "We can't build ships fast enough," he told Admiral Wells. "Not with conventional methods." Wells frowned. "What do you suggest?" Eric pulled up a holographic map of the asteroid belt. "We convert the mining operations, turn them into mobile shipyards. The miners already have the skills and equipment. They just need to build warships instead of cargo haulers." "That's never been done before," Wells said. Eric smiled. "That's why the Krell won't expect it." In the research lab, Lisa Morgan made a startling discovery while studying the captured Krell. Its neural patterns changed when we separated it from the hive mind. She explained to Catherine Boyd. "After 72 hours in isolation, it's developing individuality." Catherine looked through the observation window at the Krell warrior. It was moving differently now, less mechanical, more curious. "Can it communicate with us?" Catherine asked. "It's learning," Lisa replied. "And that's not all." She showed Catherine a cellular scan. "I found weakness in their biological structure. Their connection to the hive mind depends on a specific enzyme. Disrupt that, and we could free them from central control," Catherine finished. "Turn their greatest strength into a weakness." Peter Martinez and his team crept through the abandoned Tiberian colony on Rigel IV. Intelligence suggested a small Krell force had established a forward base here. "Pattern recognition software shows movement in the central complex," Frank whispered, checking his scanner. Peter nodded to his 6-member team. "Their mission: plant monitoring devices to track Krell fleet movements." "They're building something," Frank said as they reached a vantage point overlooking the complex. Below, dozens of Krell workers constructed what looked like massive communication arrays. "Early warning system," Peter guessed. "They're preparing for their main fleet's arrival." A sudden alarm blared from the complex. The Krell had detected them. "Plan B," Peter ordered. "Plant the devices and prepare for extraction." As his team scattered to complete the mission, Peter realized the Krell were moving with less coordination than before. Their responses seemed slower, less certain. "They're adapting to our tactics," Frank warned as they regrouped. "No," Peter said, watching the Krell's disorganized pursuit. "They're confused. They've never faced an enemy they couldn't immediately understand." Adam Carter stood in the command center, watching the long-range sensors as another human outpost went dark. "That's the third this week," Admiral Wells said grimly. The Krell advance forces are picking off our outer defenses one by one. But slower than expected, Adam noted. They're being cautious. Wells nodded. First time in their history they've met resistance they can't immediately overcome. Now we need to press that advantage. The main screen lit up with a priority transmission. Nancy's face appeared, looking tired but triumphant. Admiral, I've secured agreements with representatives from 3 species, the Vekar, the Dresh, and what's left of the Tiberians. They're willing to join our fight. For the first time since the crisis began, Wells smiled. Good work, right. Bring them in. We need every ally we can get. The meeting ended just as new alerts sounded. A massive energy signature had been detected at the edge of the solar system. The main Krell fleet. Adam asked tensely. Wells studied the readings. No, just the first wave. But it's larger than anything we've faced before. He straightened his uniform. Alert all defense stations. It's time to see if our preparations will hold. Adam looked at the display showing Earth's hastily assembled fleet. Small, outgunned, but commanded by people who had spent their lives overcoming impossible odds. They still think this will be an easy conquest, he said. Then they've already made their first mistake, Wells replied. Underestimating humanity is never wise. Samuel Gray climbed into the cockpit of his fighter with practiced ease. Around him, dozens of pilots did the same, their faces grim but determined. The young pilot had been flying since he was 16, but nothing had prepared him for this, facing an enemy that had conquered thousands of worlds. All wings, check in, he called over the comm, as his systems powered up. One by one, his squadron responded. They were an unusual mix, veteran pilots, rookies, and even 3 alien pilots from the Vekar species who had joined the human defense force. Remember the plan, Samuel said. Standard formations won't work against the Krell. We use the chaos pattern. His second-in-command, Allison Reed, sounded skeptical. Flying randomly. That's not a strategy, Sam. It's not random, Samuel replied. It's unpredictable. There's a difference. In the command center, Diana Miller worked frantically at her station. The communications specialist had been analyzing Krell transmissions for weeks. I've got it, she suddenly exclaimed. Admiral Wells and Adam Carter rushed to her side. I've cracked their command frequency encryption. How? Adam asked, amazed. Diana grinned. They use a mathematical pattern based on prime numbers. Very logical, very efficient. But they never change it. They never needed to before. Wells leaned forward. Can we disrupt their communications? Better, Diana replied. We can feed them false information. The battle began as the first wave of Krell ships entered the orbit of Jupiter. Earth's defense fleet moved to intercept, seemingly outnumbered and outgunned. The Krell advanced in perfect formation, their tactics unchanged for centuries of successful conquests. Catherine Boyd watched from the bridge of the flagship as her shield technology faced its greatest test. All ships, activate shield arrays now, she ordered. The Krell opened fire, their energy weapons at full power, but instead of punching through the human defenses, the energy dispersed and reflected back, creating confusion in the Krell formation. It's working, Catherine exclaimed. At the same moment, Samuel led his fighter squadron in what appeared to be a suicidal charge directly at the largest Krell dreadnought. Break pattern now, he shouted when they were nearly on top of the massive vessel. His fighters scattered in all directions, seemingly at random. The Krell point defense systems, programmed to predict logical attack patterns, couldn't track the chaotic human movements. Dropping packages, Samuel announced as his fighter skimmed the surface of the dreadnought. The packages were Catherine's newest weapon, tiny bots that attached to the Krell hull and began drilling through, carrying Lisa's biological agent inside. On the Krell command ship, Peter Martinez and his infiltration team moved silently through the ventilation system. Each wore specialized suits designed to mask their biosignatures from Krell sensors. "We're approaching the central data core," Frank whispered. "Guards everywhere." Peter checked the schematic on his wrist display. "We don't need to fight them. Set the bypass charge here." The small device they planted created a brief power fluctuation, just enough for them to slip past the security systems and access the core. Minutes later, they had downloaded terabytes of tactical data on the entire Krell fleet. "Package secured," Peter said into his communicator. "Ready for extraction." The battle above Jupiter's moon Europa turned dramatically as Diana activated her disruption program. Across the Krell fleet, ships began receiving contradictory orders. "Look at that," Adam said, watching the tactical display. "Their formation is breaking down." Samuel's fighters pressed the advantage, targeting the now confused Krell vessels with precision strikes. On the larger ships, the biological agent was taking effect, disrupting the connection between the Krell crews and their hive mind. "They're retreating," someone shouted as the Krell fleet began to pull back. Admiral Wells didn't smile. "Not retreating. Regrouping. They've never experienced a defeat like this. They need to reassess." "Then we've proven something vital," Adam said. "The unstoppable can be stopped. And we've gained valuable time," Wells added. "But the main Krell fleet is still coming." As the human forces regrouped, Nancy Wright entered the command center, followed by representatives from the Vakar, Dresh, and Tiberian species. "They watched the battle," Nancy said. "They saw what we did." The Tiberian representative stepped forward. "For centuries, we believed the Krell could not be defeated. Today, humans proved that belief wrong." He bowed his head. "Our remaining forces are yours to command." Admiral Wells nodded solemnly. "Then for the first time, the Krell will face a united galaxy." Olivia Barnes had never imagined her strategic planning skills would determine the fate of multiple species. The analyst stood before the War Council, her dark hair pulled back tightly as she presented her plan on the large holographic display. "We can't wait for the main Krell fleet to reach us," she explained to the assembled human and alien leaders. "We need to take the fight to them." Admiral Wells studied the proposed attack routes. "You want us to strike their supply lines first?" "Yes," Olivia replied. "The Krell have never needed to protect their rear positions before. They've always moved forward, consuming everything in their path. Their supply lines will be vulnerable." Adam Carter nodded in agreement. They've never faced an enemy that could push back effectively. This could work. Beside him, the Tiberian representative looked skeptical. "Our forces tried similar tactics. The Krell adapted quickly. That's why we won't use the same approach twice," Olivia said. "Humans are good at changing tactics when things don't work. We're bringing unpredictability to this fight." John Phillips wiped sweat from his brow as he supervised the transformation of the asteroid mining facility. The engineering genius had been working nonstop for weeks. "Load the new weapon systems on bays 3 through 7, he instructed his team. Around him, what had once been mining equipment now formed the skeleton of a mobile shipyard. "Sir, we've finished converting the mineral extractors into point defense cannons," his assistant reported. John nodded with satisfaction. "The Krell expect us to build ships in fixed locations. They'll never anticipate a shipyard that can move and fight back." He checked the production schedule. Civilian vessels were being retrofitted into military ships at record speed. Cargo haulers became troop carriers. Mining vessels transformed into heavily armed frigates. Every piece of human technology was being repurposed for war. "Sir," his assistant said, looking at a notification, "Admiral Wells has approved Operation Thunderbolt. We launch tomorrow." Lisa Morgan carefully examined the latest test results in her lab. The biological agent she had developed was showing promising effects on Krell tissue samples. "It doesn't kill them," she explained to Catherine Boyd. "It breaks their connection to the hive mind, forces them to think as individuals." Catherine raised an eyebrow. "And that's more effective than just eliminating them." "Much more," Lisa said. A dead Krell teaches the hive nothing, but a Krell that starts thinking independently introduces chaos into their system. Their greatest strength, their unity, becomes compromised. The Liberty Coalition, as the human-led alliance was now called, launched its first offensive with surprising speed. Ships appeared from hyperspace at key Krell supply depots across 3 star systems simultaneously. Samuel Gray led the fighter assault on the largest depot. All wings, engage chaos patterns, he ordered as his squadron descended on the unprepared Krell defenders. The Krell ships moved to intercept, but Samuel's pilots executed maneuvers that defied conventional logic. Daring dives, sudden course reversals, and cooperative moves that looked random, but were carefully coordinated. "They're trying to predict our movement patterns," Samuel told his pilots. "Don't give them one to analyze." On a captured Krell command station, Peter Martinez and his special operations team planted Lisa's biological agent in the environmental systems. "How long until it takes effect?" Frank asked as they moved silently through the corridors. "About 6 hours," Peter replied. "By then, we'll be long gone, and they'll start questioning their orders." A sudden alarm blared through the station. "They've detected us," Frank said, raising his weapon. Peter checked his tactical display. "No, something else is happening." He pointed to a nearby terminal where Krell warriors were gathering, seemingly confused. "Look at them. They're already starting to break formation." Back on Earth, Nancy formalized the Liberty Coalition Treaty. Representatives from 17 liberated species now stood together, united by the human-led resistance. "For too long we fought alone and fell one by one," Nancy told the assembly. "Humans have shown us that the Krell can be defeated through cooperation and adaptation." The Dresh ambassador, a tall being with crystalline features, stepped forward. "In all our history, we never considered that victory was possible. Humans have given us something we had lost: hope." In the command center, Admiral Wells and Adam reviewed the early reports from Operation Thunderbolt. 80% of targets secured. Adam noted, "Minimal casualties. The Krell never expected an attack on this scale." Wells nodded slowly. Captain William Taylor stood on the bridge of the battleship Defiance, watching as his fleet emerged from hyperspace into Krell territory. No alien ships had ever penetrated this deep into the Dominion before. The space around them was filled with strange structures, massive hive-like stations connected by energy beams. "All ships report ready, Captain," his first officer said. William nodded. "Proceed as planned. Deploy stealth probes and maintain defensive formation." The Defiance led a fleet of 300 ships from 7 different species, all united under the Liberty Coalition banner. Their mission: to locate and secure a path to the Krell Central Hive World. "Sir," the sensor officer called out, "unusual activity ahead. The Krell structures are changing." William leaned forward, watching as the massive stations began to reconfigure themselves. "They're adapting to our presence, just as Dr. Morgan predicted." Karen Davis studied the behavioral patterns of captured Krell warriors with fascination. The xenopsychologist had spent weeks developing psychological warfare tactics against an enemy that supposedly had no individual psychology. The longer they're cut off from the hive mind, the more distinct personalities they develop, she explained to Lisa and Adam. "Some become curious, others fearful. Some even show signs of creativity." "Can we use this?" Adam asked. Karen nodded. "I've developed specific sound patterns that disrupt their remaining psychic connections. When broadcast at the right frequency, it causes confusion in their ranks." Lisa looked impressed. "You're attacking them with sound." "Not just sound," Karen replied. "With doubt, something the Krell have never experienced before." In the engineering lab, Catherine worked with a team of human and alien scientists to adapt captured Krell technology. "Their power systems are far more efficient than ours," she told John Phillips as they examined a Krell engine core. "But they never considered that someone might reverse engineer their technology." John ran a diagnostic scan on the modified human ship components. With these adaptations, our vessels will have twice the firepower and 3 times the range. Catherine smiled. And they'll never expect their own weapons to be used against them. Diana Miller burst into the command center, her eyes wide with excitement. I found it. I found the location of the central hive consciousness. Admiral Wells and Adam gathered around her station as she displayed a star chart with complex Krell communication patterns overlaid. All their command signals converge here. Diana pointed to a star system deep in Krell space. This has to be where their central consciousness resides. Adam studied the location. That's at least 20 jumps beyond our current position. And heavily defended, no doubt. Wells added. Yes, Diana agreed. But there's something else. She highlighted a series of fluctuations in the Krell communications. These patterns suggest instability in the hive mind. Our biological agent and Karen's psychological warfare are having a greater effect than we realized. Samuel Gray led his fighter squadron through the debris field of a destroyed Krell shipyard. The mission had been his most daring yet, a precision strike against the Krell's main production facility. Final charges set, he reported as his fighters regrouped. Time to leave before they. A brilliant flash of light erupted behind them as the charges detonated, setting off a chain reaction through the massive shipyard. The explosion would set back Krell ship production by months. All wings report, Samuel called as they raced away from the expanding fireball. One by one, his pilots checked in. Not a single loss. The Krell defenses, once considered perfect, had failed to anticipate the human attack pattern. Peter Martinez and his team moved silently through the Krell research facility. Intelligence had identified this location as a prime target. The Krell were holding prisoners from various species for study. Cell block ahead, Frank whispered. Heavy security. Peter nodded to his team, each member taking position. They had done this a dozen times now. And the Krell still hadn't adapted to their infiltration tactics. On my mark, Peter said quietly. 3, 2, 1. The team struck from multiple directions simultaneously. The Krell guards, already affected by Lisa's biological agent, responded slowly and with confusion. Within minutes, the human team had secured the area. Inside the cells, they found scientists and military personnel from 6 different species. Among them was a Tiberian engineer who reportedly knew the layout of the Krell central systems. Extraction complete, Peter reported as they led the prisoners toward their escape ship. And we got a bonus. Someone who can help us find a way to the Krell homeworld. The combined fleet of the Liberty Coalition hung in space above the Krell homeworld. It was a beautiful planet with purple oceans and green landmasses, covered by massive organic structures that pulsed with inner light. Admiral Wells stood on the bridge of the flagship, surrounded by representatives from 17 species. Final status report. Catherine's ultimate weapon is ready, Adam said. It can disrupt the planetary defense grid long enough for our forces to land. Samuel's fighter squadrons are in position. Olivia added. Peter's team is ready for ground insertion. And the biological agent? Wells asked. Lisa Morgan stepped forward. Deployment systems are set. But sir, I've made a discovery about the Krell that changes everything. Samuel Gray led the first wave of fighters through the planet's upper atmosphere. The Krell defenses opened fire immediately, filling the sky with energy beams. Evasive patterns, Samuel ordered, just like we practiced. His squadron scattered, each pilot following their own unpredictable path. The Krell automated defenses, designed to target logical flight patterns, struggled to lock onto the chaotic human movements. Catherine's weapon is online, came the report from the flagship. Firing now. A massive pulse of energy washed over the planet. The Krell defensive grid flickered and went dark. Samuel felt a moment of triumph as his fighters swarmed toward the main control complex. Ground team is away, he reported, watching Peter's dropships descend toward the surface. We'll keep the skies clear. Peter Martinez led his team through the massive hive structure. Unlike previous Krell installations, this one was eerily quiet. "They're not fighting back," Frank noted uneasily. "Why?" "They're confused," Peter replied. "Diana's disruption signals, Lisa's biological agent, Karen's psychological warfare. It's all hitting them at once." They reached the central chamber without resistance. Inside was a sight no alien species had ever seen, the physical form of the Krell's supreme consciousness. It resembled an enormous brain-like structure, pulsing with bioluminescent light. "We're in position," Peter reported, "ready to plant the final charges." "Wait," came Lisa's voice over the comm. "Don't destroy it. We need to establish communication." Diana Miller's voice joined in. "I'm sending a direct communication protocol. The consciousness wants to speak with us." On the flagship, a holographic image formed. A Krell figure, but different from the warriors they had fought. This one seemed older, wiser. "Humans," it spoke, its voice translated through Diana's program. "You have done what no species has ever accomplished. You have broken our unity. We're prepared to destroy your central consciousness," Admiral Wells said firmly. "But we prefer another solution." "What solution could there be between conquerors and the conquered?" the Krell asked. Adam stepped forward. "Neither. We offer integration, not elimination." "Explain," the Krell demanded. Lisa joined Adam. "Your species evolved as a collective, never knowing individuality. It made you efficient but unchanging. Our scans show your evolution has stagnated for millennia. While fighting you," Adam continued, "we discovered that Krell separated from the hive mind begin to develop unique personalities. They become individuals capable of creativity and growth." "And this is preferable to unity?" the Krell asked. "Unity without diversity leads to stagnation," Adam replied. "Diversity without unity leads to chaos. The true strength comes from balancing both." The negotiations lasted 3 days. When they ended, a new era began. The Krell central consciousness agreed to a fundamental change. Each Krell would retain a connection to the collective, but also develop individual identity. In the following months, the Liberty Coalition transformed into the Galactic Assembly. Former enemies became partners in rebuilding worlds damaged by centuries of war. Adam Carter stood with Lisa Morgan on the observation deck, watching as human and Krell engineers worked together on a new type of ship, one that combined the best technologies of both species. "They're adapting quickly," Lisa noted. "Once they embraced individuality, their creativity blossomed." "And they've taught us the value of better coordination," Adam replied. "Each species contributing its strengths." Beyond the window, representatives from dozens of worlds gathered in the newly constructed assembly hall. At its center, a monument depicted figures from all species standing together, a testament to the day when the unstoppable force met the one species stubborn enough to change the rules. "No one could stop them," Lisa said, recalling the old saying about the Krell. "Until humans arrived," Adam finished with a smile. "Not to destroy them, but to show them a different way."